Hey everybody, Movie Reviewer Next Door here, and I'm back with another review. And this time I am finishing the Shaft series with Shaft 2019. This is a 2019 action comedy film directed by Tim Story, and it stars Samuel Jackson, Jesse T. Usher, Regina Hall, Alexandra Shipp, and Richard Roundtree. In this film, JJ, aka John Shaft Jr., may be a cybersecurity expert with a degree from MIT, but to uncover the truth behind his best friend's untimely death, he needs an education only his dad can provide. Absent throughout JJ's youth, the legendary locked and loaded John Shaft agrees to help his progeny navigate Harlem's heroin-infested underbelly. So, what did I think of Shaft 2019? Well, this is the weakest of sequel slash reboots for me. As again, I'm not a big fan of the original. I'd say after the original, this is my least favorite, but I think the issue here is that this just didn't feel like a Shaft movie. But let me get to the cast. Samuel Jackson plays John Shaft. He doesn't really feel like he did, which I actually liked his character in the last film. He's just kind of here to make jokes about, oh, things were better when I was a kid or back when I was around. He's okay for the most part, I guess. Jesse T. Usher as JJ Shaft. He's okay. I haven't really seen him in anything. Um, Says he's an actor, but I he's fine. He kind of starts off a bit annoying. He's very over the top with his comedy. Because he's kind of the bumbling sidekick. Because it starts out with him being the main character, and then he kind of turns into a bumbling sidekick kind of thing. And then about halfway through the movie, he becomes more of an interesting and alright character. But he's okay. Regina Hall as Maya Babanikos. She is John Shaft's ex-wife. I'll get into that in a sec, because a lot of what happens in the movie doesn't make sense. I like Regina Hall. I think she can be very funny. I think she can be a decent dramatic actress. I've seen her in When the Bow Breaks, which may not be the greatest movie ever, but she did a good job in that film. Um, but yeah, I wish she was in this film more. Alexander Shipp plays Sasha Arias. She's a nurse and a friend of Jesse T. Usher's character, JJ Shaft. Um, I liked her. She wasn't annoying. I enjoyed watching her. I feel like I've seen her before, though. I'm not recognizing anything that I've seen her in. Apparently, she's going to be in Kung Fury too. That's cool. Uh, and Richard Roundtree is John Shaft Sr. He only appears in the last 20 minutes of the movie, but it was still nice to see him back in action, in an action scene, actually killing people. That was fun. Um, but yeah, the main issue with this film is that it goes for straight comedy. Now, the past films have had comedic elements. They've had small bits of comedy in order to lighten up otherwise kind of clinic, kind of clinical and really serious movies. And I think with this film, they go that little step too far and it goes into straight comedy a lot of times. I don't exactly think that's where you should go with this story. Um, I think it works a lot better when you do just the right amount of serious and comedy, like the last film did. Even though I have my issues with the last film, I enjoyed it. Um, but yeah, I've got to address something at the beginning because the opening credits take place after a flashback to 1989, where Shaft and his, at that time, I guess, girlfriend. well, it establishes that J.J. Shaft has been born, but uh, they don't make it super clear what time a lot of stuff takes place because they mention the they show clips from the last Shaft movie, which took place in 1998 and 2000, because the story starts out in 1998 with Christian Bale's character doing the crime and all that and getting bail, and then 2 years later coming back in for um the trial. In this film, in the opening credits, they show clips of that in like 2004 and 2007. And in 2007, they show the clip of him shooting at one of the drug dealers, who he then like uses a way to catch him. That didn't happen in 2007, so I don't know if it's confusing editing or if they're just showing like Shaft doing badass stuff to set him up, as if anybody watching this didn't watch the last films, or at least the 2001. But I really don't understand that. But this is one of those films that feels like Tim Story, the director, kind of just made a random comedy and threw in sh- both John Shaft the second and John Shaft, and we're like, you know what? It would be funny if he had a kid. So we have three generations of Shaft, haha, fighting against this guy that's just now been introduced, and he's barely given the main villain is barely given a character. They set him up purely on a through dialogue, and you see flashbacks of shit that we've never seen before. So it's one of those retconning movies. And again, most of the dialogue between Shaft and his son is about like, oh, kids today they're snowflakes, which it's not that I don't agree with that, like because I do to a large extent, but it's that the movie isn't saying anything about it. It's just simply saying it. It's not trying to be like, oh yeah, there's good and bad nowadays. It's just because there's a subplot about him saying, "Oh, I hate guns," and then later he's like an amazing shot with a gun, and then he's like, "I said I hate guns, not that I didn't know how to use them," and it's just like, but you were already joking about like using guns and stuff, and it feels very uneven for a lot of it. Um, it's that's what I call this movie, uneven. It wants to be a pretty grounded Shaft movie and a Tim Story comedy like his barbershop films. And I don't hate this director. I haven't seen most of his films. I remember Ride Along. I don't really remember what I thought about it. I remember seeing Fantastic Four, and I know a lot of people hate Fantastic Four. I don't agree with that. I thought it was, I don't know, I thought it was fun. Uh, I don't think it's like a horrifically written or horrifically made movie at all. But I don't know, just something about this film kind of seems a bit off. It's not as exciting as it could be. Again, in the second half, it does get a bit better because I thought the entire movie was going to be this comedy, and I think the comedy is the main reason that this film is almost 2 hours. The last film was barely an hour and 40 minutes, which was perfect, the perfect length, because it never really felt boring. Even though it tried to copy the pace of the first film, um, it didn't feel nearly as boring as that because the camera work was really good, the editing was nice. It it actually felt like a movie because we could learn things over time and improve things. I think why I don't suffer from sacred cow syndrome, where I think just the first movie in any series is the best. Like, sequels can improve on what the first did. Just because the first pioneers something doesn't mean it's like untouchable. Like the Psycho series. I don't I think the first film is decent, but I also think it's the weakest in that it isn't really there's a lot of moments where shit moves really slow. There's a lot of moments where they drag shit out and it feels like they're trying to bump up the running time. And again, legitimately, Psycho 2 is way more uh engaging for me, especially given the ending, especially given what these people do to this man. But yeah, it's instead of that where it feels like they actually made it better, it feels like a pretty poor attempt in trying to bring the Shaft character into nowadays. Like there are people reviewing it saying it's politically incorrect and all that, and yeah, it is, but it's also I don't know, just kind of bleh. And given the IMDb ratings of these films, I'm very surprised because Shaft 1, the original Shaft, has a 6.6. Shaft's big score has a 6. Shaft in Africa is the lowest rated of all of them, which I really disagree with. It's my personal favorite of the series. Um, the Shaft TV movies overall have a 6.5, and Shaft 2000 has a 6.0. And my personal rankings from worst to best for me in terms of entertainment are Shaft 71, Shaft 2019, um, Shaft 2000, Shaft's Big Score, and then Shaft in Africa. Shaft in Africa is legitimately still my favorite. I would watch that movie again because it was actually engaging, and my it got my attention for most of it. But yeah, I don't know. Just there's not much to say about this one. It's not. I will give it one thing. It is not nearly as into the racial stuff as the others, and I'm glad for that because really they could have gone a lot worse with that. Uh, yes, there is the odd line where they're like, "Oh, or the FBI Islamophobic because they follow this Islamic guy," and I guess it's trying to do some commentary, but it doesn't really stick. And if anything, it just comes off poorly written. But still, nowhere near as horribly written of a bad guy as the last film. But still, not much to say about this one. It's okay. It seems a lot of people that this has better ratings than all of the sequels. So all of the sequels and the remake. So or requel. Uh, so I guess if you some might enjoy it. I'm just not a fan of the comedy style, mostly because it doesn't really feel like jokes. It just feels like observations. But still, it's okay. That's about all I can say. But that was my review of Shaft 2019. If you've seen the film, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. If you have any requests, put those in the comments as well. And movie reviewer next door.